We are ready to discuss cars, scandal number one of our culture of consumption. Now, again, I apologize if I insulted or hurt anybody's feelings in the previous presentation because now I'm going to do it again. uh, it's all in good fun, I hope. It's only fun until somebody gets hurt, and then it's hilarious. So let's get started. In the face-to-face class on slide 44, we show a video that's very, very graphic, folks. I start every face-to-face class with a joke, bad joke. And when we get to cars, no joke. I say, this is no joke. It is a wonderful video because it was meant to serve a purpose. And in the 1980s, the smallest state in the country of Australia had the biggest number of car deaths per capita than any other state in Australia. So they embarked upon a public education campaign to try to get people to, realize that when you get behind the wheel of the car, you are operating a deadly machine. And it worked. It lowered the death rate substantially. They're pretty raw, folks, so check them out. It's the 20th year anniversary of the first TAC, I forget, transport accident, something or other, public education commercials. So check them out. But remember, it's pretty raw. So let's now get started on slide 45. The book calls this Buying and Operating Motor Vehicles. I would call it You Are Not What You Drive. Are you what you drive? Well, some people would say, oh, yes. Oh, I wouldn't be caught dead in a Ford or a Toyota. I have to have a BMW. Well, then fine. But realize that cars in general are the second highest amount, second largest number on our cash flow statement for the vast majority of people. Chapter 7, housing usually is the first. And you are going to spend literally a small fortune on cars over your lifetime. If you're not careful, or if you decide that's what you want to do, that's your decision. I don't. I'm not a big fan of cars, so again, as I said, I'm going to insult some people. I apologize. Let's take a look at slide number 46. Some statistics. This is hard to believe, folks, but almost 50%, basically half, of all motor vehicle trips are 3 miles or less. And when I tell people that I ride my bike to work, they go, oh man, I could never ride my bike. I said, well, how far is it? Oh, it's 3 miles. Like 3 miles on a bike is nothing, folks. You can walk 3 miles. Their eyes get so wide open. How long does it take to walk 3 miles? Well, it depends, but 45 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour if you spend, if you really walk leisurely. If you do that 3 times a week, walk to and from work 3 times a week, if you live 3 miles from work, that's all the cardiovascular exercise you need all week long, folks. You need some, weight training and weight building, but that's it. People don't believe you, but that's it. 40% are 2 miles or less, and a quarter are 1 mile or less. People driving their kids a quarter mile to school because they're afraid to let them walk because of all the drivers on the road. All right, the average American uses as much energy as 3 Japanese, 13 Chinese, 153 Bangladeshis, and 499 Ethiopians. The government has done tremendous yeoman's work to get people to understand that cars, are expensive, and just changing the way you drive, just driving 55 as opposed to 65 will save you, what is it? What the statistic from the government is current prices, 5 miles an hour over the speed of 50 miles per hour saves an additional 17 cents per gallon per gas. Oh, well, if that's your choice, you want to get there faster, drive 75. That's up to you. once you get above 35, 40 miles an hour, mostly what the car is doing is just pushing the air out of the way. That's how it works. Check out the physics. Slide to 47. For every 1 gallon of gas you burn, how much carbon dioxide do you pump into the atmosphere? Just think about it. I want you to think about it. I know he's a commie socialist who wants us to not burn so much oil. What can I say? It's 7 pounds of liquid. Every gallon. It depends on what the liquid is, but for the most part, a gallon of anything liquid weighs about 7 pounds. So you burn 7 pounds of gas. How much carbon dioxide do you pump into the atmosphere? It's actually 20. What? How does that work? Well, here's the formula. It's not balanced. Take it to your chemistry professor. Let him help you balance it. I did it a long time ago. But there it is, folks. There's gasoline. Octane. 8 carbon atoms in a row with hydrogen surrounding it. And you add oxygen and explode that mixture, burn that mixture, and you wind up with water. Yeah, right. And look at the tailpipe of a car that's just leaving you, just started and leaving you. You'll see water pour out of the tailpipe. Once the car heats up, it's all turned into steam. And then there's the killer, CO2. You'll hear people say, well, cars don't pollute these days. They're talking about the other pollutants that cars used to create, because of the catalytic converters, thanks to California in the 1970s, who said enough of this smog in LA. Thanks to catalytic converters, the vehicle burns most of the other pollutants so that they are not spewed into the atmosphere. But you can't get away from burning carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide contributes to global warming, which doesn't exist. So let's get political. Slide number 48. How much of our oil do we import? Well, it turns out it used to be 2/3 for a few decades. Since the 1980s or late 70s, it was about 2 decades. It was over 66%. But now we're down to a 40%. You might have heard of fracking. Exactly. We are very, very innovative, folks. And there was a time when oil was, a lot more expensive, that people were thinking we're going to eventually not import any oil but then the Saudis said, I don't think so, and they dropped the price, and so now there's a big fight going on. We'll see how long it lasts. And so, how much per person per year do we spend on imported oil? Well, it turns out that we spend about $400 a year when oil is $50 a barrel, which is, give or take what it is right now, and it changes all the time. But a couple of years ago, it was $850, and then in the summer of 2008, when oil spiked and we were still importing a ton of oil, it was $2,000. Every man, woman, and child wrote a check for $2,000, and we're down to $400. You see how powerful we are? Once we decide upon a course of action, we are awesome. So let's see, $409 per person multiplied by about 330 million people is about $135 billion going out of the United States and into the coffers of people like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. And don't tell your Republican friends that it was the Saudis. It's not the formal government, folks, but rogue elements within the Saudi family. Yeah, that just came out a little while ago, and people were not happy about it. That some of the stuff that was going on. Don't blame the Saudi kingdom, the government, because it wasn't officially sanctioned. But oh boy, yeah, indeed. But remember, just a couple of years ago, it was $280 billion. And then in 2008, at the height, it was almost $700 billion. And you may follow, you may not, but the dollar has strengthened considerably, folks, over the last few years. And this is one of the major reasons, because we're not sending hundreds of billions of dollars abroad to buy oil. We're only spending about $130 billion to buy oil, which is still a lot of money, but compared to our economy, is really not that much. But we could do better. Well, we will do better. So how many barrels of oil do we consume each year per person? It's about 20. It's about 20. That means each one of us, gets about 20 barrels of crude oil. I love that light, sweet crude. Light, sweet crude. So what happened? Well, in the 1960s and 70s, when people drove around in their living rooms, we consumed about 26 barrels per person. And then right before the second gas crisis in 1978, the height was 31 barrels per person per year. And then the gas crisis crunch happened in 1979. Now, you don't believe me, you millennials, but all you got to do is open up your browser and look for images of the 1979 second oil shock. It was the second oil. First one was 73. And you will see lines of people sitting in their cars, miles long, up to 2 miles long, waiting for gasoline. Right. You don't believe me. I was riding my bike to work, and I passed my boss, who was sitting in his Corvette, reading the paper, waiting for gas, and I said, "Hi, Dr. Richardson," and he went, "Frank." And then within a week, the room that we usually use to eat lunch and do our conferences, the conference room, was filled with bicycles. And I became an instant celebrity, asking me all kinds of questions about how do you fix a flat tire, and what kind of clothes should you wear, and how do you lube your chain. And gas went up to $1 a gallon. I know you have a hard time believing that. And all of a sudden, there was plenty of gas. Indeed. And the conference room emptied of bicycles except for yours truly. And I went back to being the only weirdo who rode a bike to work. And look what happened 5 years later. Within 5 years, this is how powerful we are, folks. We had reduced our consumption from 31 barrels per person down to 23.7. And then people started driving around their living rooms again with minivans and sport utility vehicles. And we're up to 26.5 in 2000. By 2007, we had fallen to 25.4. And now we're down to about 20.6. And environmentalists and public policymakers for years would wonder, when are people going to stop driving these sport utility land barges? Well, the answer came in 2008, because once gas rose over $2.50 per gallon, upwards of $5 a gallon, SUV sales plummeted. People drove less. That was the first year that the miles per year of individuals went down. The Great Recession hit. And and all the Hummers, Dummers, Bummers, whatever they were called, they disappeared, and the many car companies went out of business. And now the SUVs are a whole lot more fuel efficient. Some of them know, but that they're for people who don't care about that. And people are going back into SUVs again. Gas has gone down. It's a cycle. So, you've heard my little spiel on some statistics to let you think about. Now let's talk about cars. And this really is a discussion that you might want to just ignore from me, because everyone's different, and everybody, that's why there's so many different types of cars, and so you have to decide at the end of the day. But we're going to look at it from a financial standpoint, and we ask people in the face-to-face class, what kind of car you like. Do you want a used or a new car, or maybe no car? You could use a public transit with a combination of the Zip car. What's it called? Car to go. Zip car is no longer in San Diego. A bicycle, a motor scooter, whatever. And there's a discussion board for you to make your voice heard. Let's hear what you have to say. What are the pros and cons of individual decisions of new or used cars? Well, I think you know. I don't have to tell you. New car is going to be more expensive. Yes, but fewer problems. You get that new car smell, which is really good for your lungs and brain cells. Folks, breathe that in deeply. Used car is going to be, more problems potentially with reliability, but not if you consult Consumer Reports. I'm stealing my thunder, so let's continue. When you buy a used vehicle, you have three choices. We're on slide 54. You can pick from a new car dealer. Be careful, the new car dealers often make more money off of their used cars than they do off of their new cars. Yes, they take a trade-in, lowball the poor fool who just sold their car back to the dealer at a really ridiculously low price. They make it look nice, and then they jack up the price immensely. Check used car dealers for their prices. They don't have a very good reputation, but they're usually better. And then private parties have the least amount of protection, but you're going to get a better deal. I already said it once, and I'll say it again, and in the face-to-face class, we pass it around. You can't copy it and put it on the web because it's copyrighted, but do consult Consumer Reports. The April issue and the Buyer's Guide, the yearly Buyer's Guide, have the reliability statistics for used cars, and you'd be surprised, amazed at the statistics. It's unbelievable, folks. The American cars, spotty records. Some not so good. Some actually pretty darn good. The Japanese, phenomenal. Just excellent. Why is that? I don't know. People say, oh, it's those tricky Japanese. No, most of the Japanese cars sold here are built here by American workers. So it's their culture, it's their engineering, it's their commitment. All the car makers tell you they're committed to reliability. The German cars have gone down in reliability. Not because they're not phenomenal cars, they are, but they're just so sophisticated that the BMW mechanics have support groups. Oh, I got a real tough one now. We fixed this thing 3 times and it keeps coming back. They're just so incredibly complex that this is what you expect from you don't expect great reliability. People complain about the Tesla reliability, but they're so amazingly complex that it's amazing that they're as reliable as they really are. And that's another thing we don't discuss gas versus electric cars, but electric cars, in theory, should be far more reliable than gasoline-powered engines, and that's because of just fewer moving parts. Electric motors last forever if you don't burn them up, which you can do if you're not careful, but I think they have software to stop you from doing that. And why are they not in practice? Because of all the bells and whistles. Well, I think the Nissan Leaf is pretty darn reliable, and the Chevy Volt too. I think Chevy Volt. So check it out, reliability statistics. When you inspect a used car, it is incredibly hurtful to the American male ego that we don't know what the hell's going on in cars anymore. Do you? I don't. You open up the hood, you can't even. It's all black plastic. You can't even find the starter engine, or you can't. Where are the spark plugs? Where's the battery? I gotta find the battery, and so it has just gotten to the point where it's like your medical. It's like going to the doctors. You don't know what's going on. You see all this test equipment and all these things going booping and beeping, and that's exactly what's going on in the world of cars. They are far more reliable than they ever have been, and they are far more complicated. So my advice is to find an honest mechanic. Later on, we have a link to a place where you can take a look at mechanics. Pay for an inspection. Should cost you $100, and that was what I would do. Now, the Carfax, they're not the only ones, but they're the biggest one. They're the company that tries to make sure that your car has not been salvaged or crashed or odometer fraud. And you deal with somebody reputable, you shouldn't have this problem. But, for example, after Katrina, Hurricane Katrina, a lot of cars left Louisiana and went to other states. And the salvage title about a flooded car disappeared and reappeared as a... Right, so do be careful. How do you negotiate used car prices? Well, my favorite is Craigslist. Just see what people are asking and realize you're going to get a little bit better deal than that if you negotiate. I find Kelley Blue Book to be too high, and I think they do that so that the used car dealers will say, look, it's below Kelley Blue Book. Well, yeah, everything's below Kelley Blue Book. Other friends swear by the National Association of Dealers Association. I think that's what Department of Redundancy Department. Maybe it's National American Dealers Association. And then Edmunds, I find that they're actually pretty good, but mostly I look at Craigslist, and that's me. Also, I have a good friend who's an incredible car enthusiast. He gets the Auto Trader and acts like he wants to buy this car because he's never driven one, and he goes out for a test drive, and he just loves cars. So I ask him, come with me, help me. And he's very good with cars. Slide 57. Okay, so we want to buy a new car. Well, new cars. Oh boy, folks. You know, new cars, it's a game. It's like fishing. They reel you in. They pull you in a little bit, and then they let you swim a little bit out, and then they pull you in. And they know what you do. They watch you doing what you do. They know that over half of all new vehicle purchases now involve some internet interaction. So their internet sites are incredibly sophisticated with one goal in mind, getting you to part with $30,000 on average. That's the average cost of a new vehicle now. Yikes, folks. You know, $30,000. People don't think twice about it. I do. I think a lot about it, and I hope you will by the end of this presentation. We'll see how much it cost you. But the first thing that happens as soon as you drive off that lot is, boom, it goes down 20%. What? Yeah, that $30,000 car that you bought, as soon as you drive it off the lot, is now worth about $23,000, $24,000. How much did you finance it for? We'll talk about that later when we get to insurance, because you might owe more than the car is worth. Just watch out for the advertising, folks. What? I mean, they're geniuses. They stay up at night wondering all the different ways, coming up with new ways to hook you. It drives me so angry. You can keep the car, but I will take the bubble-headed bleach blonde with the big... It's the society we live in, folks. Slide 58. The service contract. Folks, I do not recommend it. I'm not that big a fan of cars to begin with, so remember, consider the source. But don't fall for these things. Unless the car you absolutely have to have has a less than stellar repair record, again, check Consumer Reports, it doesn't make sense. The service contract usually is set up so that it only covers the things that they know aren't going to fail. They'll say, oh, it doesn't cover the air conditioning on this car. Well, then they already know it's going to fail. They've already done all their statistics modeling. You might even be told that a service contract is required by the lender or the leasing company. That's not true. If it is true, you need to go someplace else. Because once they have the sale, they will put you in a little interrogation room with bright garish lights. A greasy little man with bad breath, bad teeth, and a smell of cheap cigars will work you over, trying to get you to agree to purchase a service contract, undercoating, upholstery spray, as well as a timeshare in Cancun. Tell them if they try to put you in that little interrogation room, you will leave immediately without buying. And I've helped 2 people do this. I said, look, don't let them get you in that little room. If they try to bring you in that little room, walk away. Because that's when they got you. They'll leave you in the room. They'll go out and say, well, let me talk to my manager. They go out and they have a coffee or something like that. They don't talk to their manager. And they come back and then they work you over. Don't do it. Don't do it. But that's up to you. If you feel that you can outsmart these people, good luck. Good luck. Good luck. Negotiating the price. Well, there are consulting services, Consumer Reports, Edmunds, Kiplinger's, that will tell you what the dealer is paying. And the dealer often will show you their invoice. And they'll say, look, this is what we're paying. And often they will, go up from $500, $1,000 from there. If the car is not that, popular. If it's really popular, forget it. They're going to tack on a ton of money, and you're going to have to try to talk them back down to the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Why would they ever go below? They'll say below dealer cost. Well, because the dealer cost really isn't the dealer cost. See, at the end of the month, they get a incentive check, which it depends on the models, it depends on the car company, make the cost of the car less than the actual dealer's cost. But it's up to you, folks. It's up to you whether you feel that you could beat these people at the game that they play every day. There are car buying services, and actually the ones at the credit union, I think it's called Autoland, it actually does a pretty good job. I was surprised with one person who showed me what they actually paid for that vehicle. It was a Toyota Corolla. It was a pretty good deal. If you've had experience with them, I'd love to see your results. And then I know someone who bought, well, actually two people, but the one person really explained how it worked for me. They bought their car online. They never even saw the car. They knew what car they wanted. They went out to the different websites of the dealerships and said, "This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm interested in paying." And they drove the car to it. He never stepped on the dealer's lot. He signed all the papers at his house. And would you do that? I don't know. That's one option. Slide 60. How do you finance it? Well, this is, me, make love, not loans. But this is something that most people do when they buy a new car, often a used car. Try to put the largest down payment you can, which makes your payments lower. But that's my, make love, not loans predilection. The credit unions love car buyers. That's their lifeblood, folks. So they will often bend over backwards. They'll pre-approve you for a certain amount. Every few months, I get something in the mail from Mission Federal. Thank you, Mission Federal. I've told them several times, you're pre-approved for a $50,000 vehicle. There's no way I'm buying a $50,000 vehicle unless I can rent it out for rent. I'll buy it. Forget it. Okay. The dealer financing is often very tempting. However, there's usually strings attached. If you go with our 0.9% financing, well, you don't get the $2,000 rebate. So be careful. The credit unions' interest rates are really, really low. So, they're practically giving you the financing. Upside down equity means you owe more than what your car is worth. Negative equity, remember that 20% gone. If you bought a car for $30,000, you put $3,000 down, you owe $27,000, and the car is worth $24,000. We're going to discuss what's called GAP, Guaranteed Asset Protection. Yeah, when we get to Chapter 8. Most financing companies will recommend that you do this. Most insurance companies will say, yes, this is what we have for you. So check it out. Those of you who feel compelled to buy a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 new car, do check it out. Slide 61, leasing. Leasing a vehicle is a fancy word for renting a car, folks. The advantages is that there's a smaller cash outflow, a lower monthly payment, and some businesses love leasing. Why? Because the business, if they go under, they could just, oh, well, here you are. Here's the car back. But the disadvantage is that you never own the car. And if you go over the yearly mileage, you could get hit with a $2,000 or $3,000 fee when you go to turn it back. Look, you are almost guaranteed to spend far more over the long term leasing rather than buying. So my advice, for what it is worth from a financial standpoint, is if you are the kind of person who must have a new car every 2 or 3 years, go ahead and lease it. You're going to spend a fortune on cars anyway, and you'll spend maybe a little bit more on lease, maybe a little bit depending on what kind of trade-in you get or what you can sell the vehicle for. But the cool thing is you don't have to hassle with getting rid of the car. And remember, when the dealers, they know the drill. They will lowball you tremendously on that trade-in value. Yeah, if you lease a car, then you don't have to worry about that. But well, we'll see the numbers. Hang on a minute. Slide number 62. Yet, leasing a vehicle creates an excellent opportunity for those of us who would prefer to buy a used car. Why? Because here's the dynamic. So this guy leases a $45,000 sport utility tank, a Lincoln aggravator. I don't know, big vehicle, right? And after 3 years, the residual value is $32,000. Well, wrong. After 3 years, a car usually depreciates about 50%, some more. So the thing is really worth about $22,000. The leasee politely says, "No, thank you. Here are the keys. That's why I lease." So now the leasing company's got to sell it, and they go through different channels, and you could take it off of their hands for $20,000. They will be so happy. Do it. Fine. Look around. That's up to you. It's a 3-year-old car. The leasee usually takes good care of it. Why? Because they know if they beat it up, they have to pay for the repairs when they bring it back. Better yet, my opinion, but a Honda Fit, a Toyota Yaris, oh my God, I'd buy a Econobox for $16,000, but that's me. Slide number 63. And what kind of vehicle? Here, I'm going to insult a lot of people here. Okay. According to our authoritative and detailed scientific research, we have found that the larger the motor vehicle, the smaller the IQ of the driver, inverse relationship, the more fragile the ego of the driver. Sound like anybody you know? And C, the greater the sense of powerlessness within and anger toward the society around them. Or is it D, the smaller the reproductive organ? Maybe it's E, all of the above. Of course, the answer is E. My sincerest apologies to those of you who own a Ford Extinction. Not really. Okay, let's go from there. My apologies. I know some people will say, but I need a sport utility land barge. We go to the river and I pull the boat. How many times a year you do this? Well, once, maybe twice. Well, let's just rent one when you do that. And then buy an Econobox, and you'll the savings from exactly. And they go, rent it? It's not a bad idea. We only go once or twice a year. Okay, what are the costs of operating cars? Let's get down to the amounts. Well, in the face-to-face class, we would pass out this little sheet of paper that has the 7 items on the list of major expenses. And it doesn't include parking and tolls, but it has all the other items on this slide. And then I asked people to rank them from the most expensive to the least expensive. And so I won't give away the answers. You can do that. It's up to you to go over to the website and check out that little piece of paper and then put what you think are the most expensive to the least expensive. And then you go ahead and take a look at the answer key. And you'll be surprised. Because look, after 5 years, a car depreciates an average of 65%. It goes down very quickly, and then eventually it levels off. A running car, no matter how old it is worth $1,000, $1,500, depending on the car. And then, if you're lucky, it starts becoming worth more. Not too many cars do that, folks. And if you really want to be a car collector, get involved in the groups, and they'll tell you which ones are worth it and which ones forget it. Yeah, I once saw this Javelin. No, none of you millennials know what that is. Impeccable. It looked like it was never driven. And I asked the guy, how do you keep this thing running? This was in Morelia, Mexico. And he said, well, there's a worldwide community of people who own Javelins. And there's still some places that sell parts. Yeah, oh my God. But I can imagine this thing is actually worth a lot of money in that group of people who like AMC cars. You don't even know who they are, do you? You young folks. Slide number 65. Cost of operating a car. According to the AAA, what is the average cost per mile to own and operate a new medium sedan? So now we're talking, a Chevy Malibu or a Honda Accord or a Toyota Camry, nice medium-sized, not a luxury vehicle, but even the These are pretty luxurious. In 2015, it was 58 cents. Yeah. Per mile, folks. You think gasoline. No, it's not just gasoline, folks. So at 15,000 miles per year, that's about not quite 9,000. It's gone down a little bit because gas has gone down. But almost $9,000 a year, and many families have 2 cars. So over 40 years, in today's dollars, that's almost $700,000. In the early 1980s, and this guy is a very good writer. I thought he would have retired by now, but he's a financial talking head and writer, and he's actually very, very prudent. Comes from Boston. He's very, very prim and proper. And in the early 1980s, he did a study, and this is when cars started to get much more reliable, and now they're even more reliable. But if you bought a new car every 4 years versus buying a new car every 10 years and investing the savings, and this, of course, includes the cost of maintenance, folks, because you're going to spend more over maintenance, but not so much anymore if you buy reliable cars. And in $1980, you would have accumulated $350,000. So that's how much you would have saved. Right, exactly. So double that for now, because it's not the 1980s anymore. My advice is to buy a reliable new or preferably used car and run it into the ground. That's me. Everyone else is different. Oh my goodness, no way. Forbes says the number is closer to 12,000 a year, but I think they're concentrating on the luxury vehicles. So slide number 67. How about servicing your car? Well, again, forget it. It's just, we can't do that, folks. The average person on the street just doesn't have the tools, doesn't have the training. Find an honest mechanic. Stay loyal to them. If you are so inclined, go right ahead. But good luck. Good luck. A million years ago, I used to work on my vehicle, and not anymore. It's just, I can't do it. So, what's the bottom line on cars? In my humble opinion, get a bicycle. Get a scooter, get a motorcycle. People poo-poo bicycles, but you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only do you reduce traffic and reduce the amount of oil that we use, our foreign dependence on oil, you also make yourself healthier. Yeah. And because I have 58,000 miles or so on my commuting bikes, and at 58 cents per mile, that's about $35,000. Plus, I've saved a tremendous amount in healthcare costs. Because before I started riding, again, I used to ride in my early 20s, and then I got this job that was 20 miles away. I thought, how am I ever going to ride? But I eventually started doing it, and I have conquered sedentary lifestyle disease. Now I exercise and just paunchy, not suffering from sedentary lifestyle disease anymore. And don't forget the savings to the environment, which are difficult to estimate, but nevertheless do exist. It's getting loud in here. Besides, the best part of riding a bicycle is that it is fun to ride past people stuck in traffic in their cars on the way to the gym. Driving to the gym. I love it. I just love it. There used to be a gym up on Otay Lakes Road. You come up from the hill towards the college, where I came, and they'd be lined up to get into the gym, and I would just kind of snicker as I rode my bike. And traffic's only going to get worse. And just a quick note on traffic. You hear people talk about, well, it's not going to be that bad as we add more cars. It'll just take a little bit longer to get from point A to point B. And that's not true. That is not true. I did a little bit, actually I did a lot of it when I was a million years ago, with statistics and simulations, and we would model roads. Once a road hits 100% capacity, what it was originally maximum capacity, it doesn't take you an extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You add, 5%. It makes it go up 5% more time. No, it's an exponential. It's a non-linear transformation. You add that extra 5-10% cars, and it goes up 30-40% the time it takes. So bicycles, scooters, motorcycles reduce that traffic immeasurably. And I know it's more dangerous. That's why I ask you to get training. Check out the San Diego Bike Coalition. If you want to go on a scooter or motorcycle, because they have great training for bicyclists. You think you know how to ride a bicycle, but you'll be surprised that you don't. You knew mostly, but there was a few things. Oh my goodness, don't ride the wrong way of traffic. Okay, I won't do that anymore. That's really dangerous. In fact, if people stopped doing that, 1/6 of all bike car accidents would disappear immediately. If you get a scooter or a motorcycle, right, you get some training. The CHP has authorized training, which is awesome, folks. I heartily recommend it. I got it a million years ago. I'm sure it's better than it was then. And think. You do not have to be a slave to your car. You do not have to allow your car to kill you with kindness. If you're going to use your car, think about how you could use it more effectively. Instead of driving around 20 minutes looking for a really good parking space in the mall, park a half a mile away and walk. How's that? You'll get some exercise. You won't waste gas trying to find a parking space. Think about it. Oh well, enough. Off my soapbox. Cars.